Facebook. Thanks so much for joining us tonight for Bigger Business Live. Let me get this recorded as well. Okay. So I'm really excited because we're going to be diving into some really good topics about what worked for us as business owners, as service providers in 2019, what didn't work, because let's be real, there's always stuff that doesn't work the way we want it to or think it will. And sometimes it's stuff we even like or really want to work for us. And then we're gonna be talking about what we're gonna focus on more of in 2020 and, you know, what we're definitely leaving behind. So I just want to introduce everyone. So first, I just want to introduce Jamie. Say hey, Jamie.
Hi.
Is an attorney, podcaster, and entrepreneur dedicated to making legal accessible and to sharing the message that legal does not have to be scary. As the owner and founder of #Legal, Jamie draws on her experience working with influencer marketing professionals, creatives, and business owners to help her clients grow and protect their businesses. She leads an all-female virtual team focused on providing clients with advice on a wide range of subjects, and she's a highly experienced speaker and the co-host for the Fearless Business podcast. Jess Freeman over there is an award-winning web strategist and designer that helps health and wellness coaches get better clients. She's been featured in over 50 publications and websites and is the host of the Digital Lounge podcast. Jess lives in Atlanta, Georgia with her husband, Aaron, and their dog, Morgan. And she also has an amazing YouTube channel with tons of business videos. So check it out at Jess Creatives. Nicole over there, Iacavoni, is a money therapist and licensed couples therapist with 17 years experience. She writes a crush-worthy newsletter called Money Love Notes, where she dishes on her latest financial crush and offers inspirational ideas for dating your money. Her signature program, Money Therapy, teaches you how to transform your toxic relationship with money into a steamy love affair. And then we have Chris Ward, who is the founder of Win the Hour, Win the Day, both a platform and Amazon best-selling book that helps entrepreneurs systematically grow their business and enjoy a personal life too. After the loss of her husband, Chris returned full-time to the marketing and branding agency she had founded years earlier, only to find her business was thriving. She began teaching clients the exact systems and processes that had freed her up and helped her during the difficult time and changed their lives in the process. So I am really excited that you guys are all here and that we're going to be digging into these topics. And I just want to say, if you guys have any questions who are watching at any time, I know a bunch of you are on Facebook, say hey, let us know where you're from, and drop your questions at any time, and we'll make sure to get back into them so we can dive a little deeper into things. So what I want to start with, you guys, is what I really want to know. What were some of the mindset blocks or some of the things you tried to up-level with your mindset this year in order to have growth in your business? Jamie, do you want to start out?
You went deep fast.
I feel like mindset is like
we didn't ease in at all
for everything.
I love it.
Tell us about your childhood, Jamie.
I'm telling you.
That's the therapist in me.
So I actually had a unique thing happen to me coming into 2019, in that I had a partner in my business who decided that she wanted to leave my law practice. So I had to go from a partner mindset to a sole owner mindset. And I essentially had to build a staff that we were in the process of building anyway. We had employees, but I had to really quickly ramp up and hire people to sort of continue with our growth, but also make up for the fact that she had decided that she wanted to go do something else. And so I had to go through all of that, which was, it's really emotional, even though there was no bad blood, no drama. We did it in a loss. Yeah, we did. I mean, we were partners for many years, and partnerships end all the time, and I counsel my clients in that way. But I really had to go from sort of checking in with someone at all times to just making all the decisions myself. And that switch flipped quick. I was stunned. It was clear I was ready to do it. And that it was a really great fit for me, but I sort of had to make that shift, and it's very different to go from leading with another person to just leading on your own.
Right. So that's huge, is really kind of going more even into the CEO role than you were
Hmm.
before.
Yeah,
And that's a
definitely.
huge change for your everyday too.
Hmm.
Nicole, how about you?
Oh gosh. So my mindset shift that I experienced this year sort of ties into like a 2019 fail, but we'll probably get into those a little later. Um, so I got presented with a really cool opportunity this year. I was offered a full-time teaching position at the local college here, teaching social work students, and I love teaching. It was like a dream job come true for me, and I loved every minute of that experience. And it's just sort of at a critical time in that department where they're growing and there's a lot of need for full-time permanent educators there. And so I was propositioned with the opportunity to become a tenure track professor in the department, which was really exciting. But that would mean going back to school for a doctorate, another 3 years of my life, about $35,000 in student loans again. And I really had to think hard about that because I have a counseling practice that I run, or I still see clients doing individual and couples therapy. I have an online business where I'm doing money therapy with clients that I'm trying to grow and really nurture. And then I have this other opportunity teaching college that I really love too. And so it's like all these balls are in the air, and I love doing all of them, but I'm one person. And if I had a clone, it would work out, but I don't. And so I really had to do some soul searching because the tenure track professor opportunity was really appealing because for the 8 years I've been in private practice and working in my online business, I haven't had health insurance. I haven't had 401k benefits. I mean, those are sort of the things that you give up to be your own boss and run your own business. And so, here it's like all of that being served on a silver platter. That's so tempting to have like that job security and that steady paycheck and those benefits coming in. And I really had to shift my mindset and not just focus on that security, but focus on what I really love to do and what sort of sets me on fire. And when I got honest with myself about that, it was being my own boss, doing things my own way, setting my own earning ceiling and not having somebody else dictate that. And I can live without the benefits and the steady paycheck in exchange for those other perks. But I really had to sort through it and reconcile it before I could land on that and pass up that opportunity.
Right. And I think that is like the one thing that kind of haunts us is those benefits.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's about like getting creative about how you can provide those benefits for yourself. Like I just went down the track of buying my own private health insurance, and like navigating that process so that I could provide that for myself and my family. Because my husband is self-employed too. So we don't have employer benefits from either of us. And so it gets a little tricky, but it doesn't mean that those benefits are completely unavailable to us. We just have to be creative in how we bring those into our lives.
Yeah. And I'm glad you're bringing that up because I think that it's something that, the health insurance piece, I think is something that kind of haunts all of us and isn't something that's talked about a lot. And I don't think it's intentional. I think it's just something like we don't want to think about that, we have to pay for.
Definitely. It's a little depressing.
It definitely is a little depressing. But I know that's a question that I get a lot from women entrepreneurs, like, my husband doesn't have health insurance either. Or, I get that question a lot, just as me being single, like, I get it from a lot of people who are single and who are worried about that. So I'm glad you're bringing that up. And, I think it's inspiring to know that you did have that opportunity handed to you and you still kind of, like overcame the mindset blocks and the lack mentality that you wouldn't be able to do.
Definitely. Yeah. And I work with a lot of clients too that are working in corporate jobs where they have the benefits and the really good paycheck, but they have a side hustle that they want to make their full-time gig. And one of the things that often holds them back is this fear around losing those benefits and how that might make them very vulnerable or how their financial situation might be compromised because of that. And that keeps them stuck in jobs that they really hate, right? And so like helping them to bridge that gap and looking at different resources and how they can piece that together, it can often be very helpful and eliminate some of the fear that's keeping them from making that side hustle their full-time job and doing really what they want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Chris, how about you? Any mindset blocks that you felt you had to overcome to up level?
Yeah, there's a shopping list, but I think I think for me, oops, sorry. I think for me, I wrote my book and it's been out, I'd say a year now. And when I first said, okay, I'm going to get out there and I started doing podcasts and stuff, I was painfully aware that I really didn't have much of a presence on social media. I had never really loved it before. I was fine as being a speaker. When people invite me to events to speak, I was all good with that because you invited me. But when
Mhm.
people are walking by and I'm trying to tug at your sleeve as you're going by to get your attention, I never really was comfortable with that. I sort of didn't, do well there. And then also, as we mentioned, the cheery story in the opening is, I had been away. And so clearly after your husband passes, you don't feel like saying, look what I had for breakfast on
Mhm.
Facebook. So I kind of went underground for a while and could lick my wounds and say, that's my good excuse. And then when I was running out of an excuse and I had to promote the book, it's like I was still comfortable with podcasts and stuff, but I wasn't very good at the social part of social media. I
Mhm.
always felt like, oh no, I'm working here, people. I'm really busy. This is what I'm doing. So I really had to understand that I know this in my head. And it sounds like a horrible thing I'm about to say, but that relationships are really important. And I get that. But when you're just got so much to do at work, you think, oh, well, that relationship is important when we're going to have a business meeting about a potential project, but I'm being responsible working here.
Mhm.
And I now see that I didn't sustain some relationships that would have been beneficial to me. And not to sound one sided, but just the social and social media. So I had to kind of get out of my own way and just say, get out there and just throw yourself out there and be social,
Yeah,
you know.
and I'm glad you're, being honest about that because, I think that the relationship piece is huge and it is something that is easy to push aside because it's easier to, for some of us, like just post pictures of our breakfast on
Yeah.
Instagram.
Or you see other people's stuff and then you don't realize you're not putting your own stuff out,
Right, right.
so
You get
then
caught in the scroll.
yeah, and then you think, well, does this really matter? Do people really care? And then you start thinking, like I'm not doing anything that dynamically exciting. So then you judge your stuff and say, well, I don't
Right,
need to put that out yet. Wait till
right,
something wow happens. So I just had to get out of it's social media, it's
right.
networking. And once I got out of my own way, it's fine. It's quite a freedom now.
Yeah.
Like, it's just fun. Have fun with it.
Right. And just as a side note, we met through a relationship you built.
Yeah. There you go.
So I think that's really important too, is like that's how these things come about and that's how new
Yeah.
opportunities come into play.
Yeah.
Jess, how about you?
Yeah, I think my mindset shift was one kind of a that's obvious looking back. I came into like the last few years, I feel like I've been very like, no, like I can do all the things. Like I'm a very techie person. I learn things very easily. And so it's like, no, like I've been a one-woman show for 8 years and I was like, no, like I'm kind of like proud of that badge. Like I do all the things with the occasional like, oh, I hire a business coach or whatever, but like I didn't have like ongoing support. And then finally this year I was like, okay, so like maybe it's not a bad thing if you need help.
Right.
Like maybe you can bring on monthly help, even if it's only 5 hours or like one little task here and there. And it was like, oh, like you just doing this one little tiny task. Like you always hear people who are like, just start small. Like what's one thing they can do? And I finally did that and it was like, oh. So I think like letting go of that. And then also even kind of letting go of things in business that feel like an obligation to say yes to. Like there were friends that I was like an affiliate for, and I mean technically still am, but they were like, oh, like you can do like this email sequence and like a mini launch. And I finally was like, my audience doesn't need this. Like this doesn't like I know my audience better now, and this is like it's great, but it's not great for my audience.
Not a good fit.
And so it's nothing wrong with you. It's just like I don't think it's going to serve my audience well. They're just going to get annoyed by my emails that they don't. They're like, this is not relevant. I don't want this. And so I think getting comfortable with being like, no, like I support you, but this isn't going to help my audience. So I need to say no.
Yeah, I love that one because, I think one, knowing that just because you weren't using support before doesn't mean you don't need it now. And two, protecting your audience more and when you're more clear on who they are every year, you can make sure that you are serving them better too. and not feel bad about saying no to opportunities that aren't a right fit for them. And what I love is that, you know, all of these mindset blocks and shifts that we've had to make are so different. And I think for you guys in the audience who are watching this, you know, I think it's easy to say, like, why am I not having the same experience as someone else? But, you know, we're all, you know, different people, different businesses, and we're all making different mindset shifts, or things are showing up at different times in our life. And it's usually because of just situations in our lives that are happening that cause that particular mindset shift to happen. So I think that that is something that is really, you know, just good to remember for yourselves. And Brandon says such good info. Thank you, Brandon. So what I want to go into is, because I think like all these mindset shifts and things like that, what they really do is they can impact our time. And then we already have all these business tasks to deal with, visibility tasks to deal with. So what was something that really worked well for you in terms of managing your time this year? Like, did you outsource something? Did you hire someone? Chris, let's obviously start with you for this one, since you're the productivity and time management expert.
Well, that's kind of a loaded question, because what I would tell you is that I have systems in place that allow me to execute at a high level, right? So they're really simple strategies. I had a big pushback when I heard about time management, you know, back in the day when I was working crazy hours, because I thought I get a lot done in a day.
Right.
I don't need some heavy system out there. So I really wanted something that was a simple and easy and permanent fix. And so that really is what my book is about. But I will give you an example. Not too, maybe 6 weeks ago, I was finally convinced that I should have my own podcast. And so I met with my team and we talked about it. And okay, great. And then I said, you know what, this spring, let's pick March. And then they said, I had this speaking gig in 3.5 weeks. That would be a great place to launch it. And I was like, oh, okay. That sounds like whatever. So then they said, Chris, let's just use the strategies we always use with the book. And so we're like, oh my gosh, like, and I don't mean just like I launched a podcast. I mean, I had some really wonderful guests on, high profile guests that of course I was going around their schedule. They weren't going around mine. We ranked in the top 10. We did all these things and we did it in 3.5 weeks. So what I would tell you is, we followed the strategies of the book. Now we did hustle a fair bit in those 3.5 weeks, but I still didn't work longer hours. That's my number one rule. You don't work late. You don't start doing that crazy slippery slope. So what I would tell you is I did buckle down and follow my own strategies, and we just trimmed the fat and we got it out in 3.5 weeks, and we got it out with fanfare and marketing, and, you know, not just like, okay, now it's up. Right. So and it's not an area, it's not fair for me to answer that, because all I'll start doing is telling you guys, I hear what you're saying, Jess, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Jess, I can help you. I've got these things for you. Right. So I'm not a great person to start with, but I will tell you that it is, if productivity is your superpower, you can do anything.
Right.
And that working hard, working long hours is working against yourself, and that business should be fun. And when it's fun, it's easy.
Yeah. And it sounds like
talk, or I'll just keep going about that.
Yeah, and it sounds like too, not overthinking it, right? Like,
No.
you know, if you had launched in spring, you would have overthought it. You would have probably ended up creating a lot more work for yourself.
Yeah,
that would have more time. So I think, honestly, unfortunately, I'm someone that works well under pressure. So that happens to me a lot, and it's also sort of accepting the ways that you are productive too, and constantly tweaking them to be more fun. But I think too, like, it's different for everyone. So Jamie, how about you?
So when I sat down, I sort of felt like I had this very unique opportunity in the beginning of the year, because I could sort of redo a business that had been running and going, which was kind of cool. So I actually created 3 buckets of things that I wanted to do in my business and said, I'm not going to do any of the rest. So I'm a delegator, and I just started to hire. And I find that, you know, like Jess said, you know, the first hire is the most painful. And I had done that a few years ago. So I already knew that I'm a great delegator. I have no problems with that. And I just literally created roles, or filled roles for the things I didn't really want to do. And there are 3 things that I'm really good at and I really love. And I do those, and everybody else does everything else.
Right.
So that was really nice to sort of even boil it down to those really 3 basic things. Within my days, I am a heavily scheduled person. My entire day is mapped out, and I'm a time blocker. So I have certain times of the day, like I know my personality in the morning, I'm great. And then I sort of lose steam. So that's when I time block my phone calls. And then when the phone calls end, I do administrative tasks. And then I make a concerted decision that at a certain time I stop working earlier than I normally would to spend time with my kids, because I have 2 boys and they come home from school and everything stops. And so I actually go back to work so that I can have that time, because I don't look at my phone. There's no phone calls, there's no email, there's no nothing. And then I just sort of, at that time, I'm a night owl also. So I tend to get another steam, and I can run through, if there's client work or things that need to happen, I run through that at night if I need to. Otherwise, I'm done. So I know my schedule. I know when I work best. I know when I'm most effective, and I just sort of capitalize on that.
Yeah, I'm a night owl too, so I totally understand that. And it's easy to feel too, once again, like you have to really figure out what works for you, because it's easy to feel judged by other people who are morning people or who are getting things done early, right? Yeah. So I'm always like, I feel fine working at
Yeah, I don't mind it, honestly. I get so much done when the house is quiet and there's nothing going on, there's no distractions. I can run through stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Jess, how about you? How do you stay productive? Are you like a schedule type person, or?
I am kind of like Chris in that I have a lot of systems and automation. So I am super like automated in my business, but I think my big time saver goes back to what I said earlier about hiring. So like one of the first things that I hired was my VA. And one of the things that's not automated is like adding my clients into my CRM and like sending out their contract. Like the CRM takes care of all like everything after the contract, but just that initial like sending. So that was one thing. It was like, I mean, this takes approximately 10 minutes, but it's something I can outsource. And then recently, then I also outsourced my my weekly newsletters that go out, and those are written by my copywriter. And so that takes probably half an hour to an hour off of my plate. So that's outside of those 2 things, everything else, like systems wise, is pretty automated. So I just spend a lot of time focusing on the client work.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the stuff that somebody else can't do.
Yes.
Nicole, how about you? How do you like to stay productive? What's been helpful for you this year in terms of managing 2 different businesses, especially?
Yeah, I have a couple of tools and strategies that I use on an ongoing basis. One is, I'm like you guys, I'm a night owl, but I converted to being a morning person this year. So, and there's a reason behind that. My husband decided that he's going to go to the gym at 5 a.m. every day. So he's up at 4:30. So he wants to go to bed at like 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night. And so I was like, all right, I'm just going to go to bed at 9 with him. And then I'll just get up at 5:30 in the morning and start my day. And so that's what I've been doing. And I actually really love it because I get to enjoy my coffee while it's hot before my kids get up and the screaming and the like getting ready for school routine begins. And that's sort of like my self-care time. So hot coffee, I do like morning pages. For those of you who don't know what those are, it's just like a mind dump of 3 pages, just whatever's on your brain. Sometimes really great blog posts unfold during that time. Sometimes it's just randomness that disappears. Sometimes it's like service ideas. Just it's a great ritual that I really look forward to every day. And then I will either take the dog for a walk or do yoga or something, so that self-care is automatically built into the front part of my day. So if everything else goes to hell, at least I got that in and it went well. The other tool that I absolutely love and can't live without is my paper planner that has hourly time slots, because I book everything by the hour. I write it down with colored pens. I use stickers. I make it super fun and pretty. And I reserve certain days for certain jobs. So say like Mondays and Wednesdays are my client days. I book them really full and I just see all my clients on those days. Tuesday is my content creation day, and I will batch all of my content. So I'll save Tuesdays, like the first Tuesday of every month is reserved for blog posts. I'll do a month worth of blog posts in that time. And then the other Tuesdays are for like course creation, or it might be for newsletters, or it might be Facebook posts or something like that. I'll just batch all of my content all at once. And then Thursdays are like my connection days. So I'll set up virtual coffee dates, or I'll do discovery calls or things like that. So each day sort of has a purpose that I just repeat week after week, so I know what I'm doing and when, and I can sort of get in a mental mindset or frame of mind to really be working on those tasks and anticipating them and get in the zone so it can be super productive time too.
Yeah. And I think if anyone here is listening and is like, hey, that sounds really good, you know, try it out, start small, and just allow yourself time to get used to it. Because something for me is like, you know, it takes time to get used to a new productivity strategy, even if it really works well. I might go back and forth on it at first. I might not stick to it. Or maybe like in the beginning, if I am batching content, I might only get a little bit done, but then I'm able to get more done as I continue it. So I think for you guys who are listening, these are really, really great strategies, but don't worry about going full in 100% on them. Just start off small with them and continue to build them up over time. All right. So how are you planning to free up more time next year? This is kind of connected. What projects are you planning to free up more time for? Jess, why don't we start with you? Are you planning anything new, or planning to do more of something that you're already doing and you're looking to kind of free up more time in your schedule for it?
I am being more intentional in planning some of my launches ahead of time. So it's not like, oh yeah, like now's a good time to launch. Or like next month. Okay, like let me start getting that together. So it's more like content is already more in line with that. And then I already have, can like talk to my copywriter sooner in the process. So that's something that I'm just working ahead on. And like I've created like a 2020 kind of overview, and it's kind of like a calendar, except there's not all like the dates. It's just boxes for each month. And I have a focus written for each month. And so that way I know like, okay, this month, this is what I'm focusing on. I'm going to like push this service or this project or this launch, whatever this month. That way I can stay really focused in 2020.
Yeah, I love that. I actually just did a monthly overview as well. And it feels good to know about, like, to just kind of have that out of my head and to not keep rethinking it. JV, what about you?
So I'm actually, I'm hiring another attorney to take over some of the client work that, so that I can free myself up. Yeah, just some of the client work so that I can free myself up, because I'm really focused and I've been really loving writing and talking about negotiation, advocacy, and persuasion. With 15 years as experience as a lawyer, I was a professor as well. And so I teach those subjects and love them. And every time I give a talk, I speak at a lot of events. And every time I talk about negotiation, I light up. So I was like, there's something about this.
Right.
And so I'm really interested and excited to sort of expand just my writing and my speaking on those subjects. And so that's my plan for 2020 is the law firm, will continue. I will continue to lead my law firm. I will continue to do the client development that I love doing and the client strategy. But I want to take myself a little more out of the day-to-day and really focus on talking and writing and speaking and potentially creating products around those topics, because I think that they are an talked about, I guess you'll say, an underserved area that not a lot of people talk about, and it touches every aspect of your life, whether you are an entrepreneur or not. Negotiation, the ability to advocate for yourself, the ability to persuade, all of those things are often very challenging. And I find in particular, not to genderize, but for women. And so I'm really interested in those topics and talking more about it, because my background sort of lends itself to that. And I get really excited about it, because what comes incredibly naturally to me doesn't to most people. So
Yeah, and I think too, just for those of you who aren't familiar with Jamie yet, but will be now, Jamie understands online business, which a lot of lawyers don't. So it's definitely important that you're getting out there and speaking about those topics because there's so few people who can in an educated, helpful way. So I'm glad to see that you're increasing your visibility.
Thanks.
Chris, how about you? What are you planning to free up more time for in terms of projects next year?
Well, what we're going to do is start focusing a little bit more on our group work. So we've got a group coaching program for Win the Hour, Win the Day. So I would really like to serve more people because I just think, again, there's too many people out there grinding it out, working against themselves. And I just think, that's just not where the creativity and fun comes from. You didn't become an entrepreneur so that you could have a mean boss, which would be yourself. I remember back in the day before I put these practices in place, I remember one night late at night, I thought, there are laws in the land to protect me from this kind of stuff. Like they fought for rights that somebody wouldn't work these insane hours. And I started my own business and violated all those rights. So I just want people to have a lifestyle that goes along with the enjoyment of being creative with their workday by being an entrepreneur. So just really focusing on our group programs for Win the Hour, Win the Day.
Awesome. Nicole, how about you?
Yeah, so the way I'm freeing up time in 2020 sort of stems to how I had zero time in 2019 because I was doing all these things, working in both businesses and teaching full time. And I was like a chicken with my head cut off. And so I sort of learned my lesson that really isn't in my best interest or my client's best interest to do that. So I am saying no to the things that I'm not truly passionate about or that don't directly align with the mission and vision for my businesses, and only saying yes to, like Jamie said, the things that really make me come alive and that I'm really passionate about. And I'm really passionate about helping entrepreneurs deepen their relationship with money because I feel like this is still a topic that carries a lot of stigma with it. And it's sort of a taboo topic that isn't talked about a whole lot, especially how we feel about money and how that influences the way that we behave with it. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs, especially women, have complicated feelings when it comes to money. And we're really sort of in the midst of a financial crisis as a society in America. When you look at the amount of debt that we're carrying, when you look at how many people are living paycheck to paycheck, and there is a staggering statistic out there that 58% of women turn over financial decision-making to a male partner. And that statistic alone makes me lose sleep at night. So I am on this mission to empower entrepreneurs, particularly women, to play a more active role in their financial lives. And so the projects that I want to really devote all my time and attention to in 2020 include a group program that I'm planning. It's a year-long online program called Money Therapy, and it's basically a year's worth of weekly therapy sessions for you and your money to build a love affair with your money that lasts a lifetime. It's a really great self-directed program that I'm super excited about. And then the other thing that I'm doing in 2020 to really focus on is I'm doing Money Therapy VIP work. So that's my one-on-one offering. It's a 3-month program so that we can really dive deep, dig in there, kind of see what's working, what isn't working when it comes to the relationship with money, teach really good money management strategies, but more importantly, shifting the mindset around money, how we view it, how we feel about it, how we relate to it. And so I'm really excited to be focusing in on just those couple of offerings and just create exceptional experiences for the very few clients that I work with, which is another shift. I'm not going to work with all the people and fill my schedule to the brims. I'm going to work with a few people and give them a tremendous life-changing transformational value. And I'm really excited to make that shift and really focus on quality over quantity this year.
Yeah, I love that. So that's a big shift for you, kind of putting more energy to the newer business.
Yeah.
Maybe outsourcing some of the other stuff or letting members of your team take care of that piece.
Yeah, one of the things that changed for me too is within the past few months, I hired an additional therapist in my practice because I would really like to gravitate away from doing one-on-one therapy in my clinical practice and devote more time to my online business with doing money therapy.
Right.
Because I've been working in mental health for 17 years. And as much as I love it, I am feeling like it's time for me to make the shift and be in more of a supervisory role. So I'm looking forward to just being able to teach my other clinicians how to be rock star therapists and not actually have to see all the clients myself. And that's going to help me to free up more time to be working in my online business and doing financial therapy instead.
Yeah. And many of my clients shift into the leadership roles, and it really is, it's just a different focus on work. It's not like necessarily less work or anything like that, but it is kind of just prioritizing your time differently. So it'll be exciting to see what happens for you with all of that. Jess, how about you?
I am going to be spending more time growing my membership. So
Okay.
I do a lot of client work, like that's my bread and butter, but I launched a membership just a few months ago and found that I really love that because I'm like a teacher at heart, even though I never was a teacher. I grew up in a family of teachers, and it's a great way I found for me to be able to help people a little more hands-on without like, okay, you need an entire new website.
Right.
It's like these little hands-on things where they can still have access to me and like really diving deep without like, okay, we're going to work together and like redo this entire project or, whatever. So that's my big focus for 2020.
Yeah. And I think, I see a common theme for everyone in terms of really kind of redirecting your attention to less, not more. And I think that's something that, I think in the beginning as newer business owners, we're sort of all over the place or we're trying all the things. And I think, it's good and it allows us to see what we're really good at or where we want to shift our attention to. And I think, especially, some of you have been doing this for years, it's a continual process of letting stuff go and kind of shedding old stuff. So it's fun to see that you guys are kind of focusing each in on a new particular specific project. All right. So what I want to dive into a little bit is visibility, and getting in front of more people and really thinking about how you can grow your community and audience. So Nicole, let's start with you because we actually met in a program about PR. So tell us a little bit about what you've been doing to get visible and get yourself out there and build that community and find those women.
Yeah, I love talking about this because I'm like a newbie to the PR world and I used to be totally terrified of it. In fact, as an introvert, I sort of just wanted to hide in my office and just write content all day and wait for people to find me. But I realized that doesn't really work. But now that I've gotten my feet wet, putting myself out there and gaining visibility, I actually really love it. I'm sort of addicted to it, actually. One of the things that I'm really addicted to right now and I'm super obsessed with is listening to a whole bunch of really awesome podcasts that serve my ideal client. And, digging into some of the conversations that they have and some of the guests that they have, because I love podcasts to begin with. So it's like a hobby turned into a business related project. And then, learning more about those hosts and those shows and pitching to them, what I could offer and how I might be able to help their audience and the stories that I can bring and those sorts of things, and being a guest on podcasts. I really love that medium because I feel like it's such a great way to get to know people, to hear their stories, to know their personality, to see if it's a good fit to work with that person or if they can help you in some way. And so I think that's a really great place to gain visibility and gain some presence and talk about what you do and what you have to offer. So I'm focusing a lot on podcasts right now and being guests on them. And the other thing that I do a lot is I signed up for HARO, Help a Reporter Out. And so I get the daily emails about different stories that journalists are looking to write about and weighing in on those. So writing quick pitches to send to journalists or reporters is something that I do on an ongoing basis. And that's not necessarily taking visibility for gaining clients or enrolling people in my course, but it's more so to gain visibility in terms of like adding people to my email list and sending newsletters to them, or bringing them into my Facebook group and those sorts of things. Because another project I'm working on is writing a book, and that helps to build a platform. So when I'm launching that book, I have a larger audience that I can reach and sell that. So it's definitely a marathon when it comes to PR and visibility, not a sprint. It's something that I am now making it a point to really schedule into my calendar to do every single week and making time for that. Whereas before I a little bit here, a little bit there when I have time, but I'm realizing more and more that this needs to be made a priority. And so I would say that at this juncture, I spend about 80% of my time trying to gain visibility and putting myself out there, making connections, and about 20% of my time creating content. Whereas before, I think it was flipped. Right. But I also love hanging out in Facebook groups geared toward other entrepreneurs and making connections with other people in those groups, because you meet really interesting people that are doing really great work. I like setting up virtual coffee dates with people and just getting to know them and their work, because I like referring people to them. If there's something that I can't help them with, I'm able to find other people that fill that niche. And that feels really good to me, to support other people in their businesses and help clients get the help that they're looking for that I can't provide for them. And so that's the other thing that I'm focusing on, is just networking, connecting, having fun coffee dates online and those sorts of things.
And I think it's awesome that you're being really honest about the 80% of the time, because I think that people, we think we could just kind of send out a couple pitches and we're going to be solid. And it really is like an ongoing thing. And, the pitching piece can actually take more time than the actual takes a lot more time than the actual podcast interview or the writing a guest blog or whatever. So I think
because not all of those are going to be accepted. I mean, I might pitch 10 podcasts and get one that responds and says, yeah, we want you on our show. But I spent all that time creating 10 pitches. And that's the other thing about visibility that used to really freak me out, and I would avoid it, is that rejection piece, like not hearing back or getting a no, we're not interested, because that used to sting a little bit. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. And that sort of like ouchy feeling is wearing off for me. And I'm like, it's not personal. It's just not a great fit. And I wouldn't want them to have me on the show if I'm not a great fit for their audience, or if what I have to say isn't going to be helpful. And so then you just kind of move on to the next. But even if, definitely make a lot of time for it, because you might have to try a bunch of times before you get a yes.
Right. And I think there are different stages in your business where you are putting more time to that too. Chris, how about you? What is your visibility strategy that works this year that you're planning to do more of next year? Or maybe it's the podcast, your podcast.
Yeah. So I have done a lot of podcasts in the last year, and I did, like yourself, it was my first one out there. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. It's like writing Santa Claus. Right? And so that went really well, to the point that, actually then I have my own podcast, but I'm still having to even promote the book, but now also promote my podcast means I have to be on even more podcasts. So there's definitely that. Another thing I'm just starting to do, which I was not doing it all before, it was just doing weekly webinars and lives and stuff. We're doing our first one tomorrow, actually, on a big part of time management is people understanding, like you said, Jess, that you need a team. And there's so many opportunities in this day and age to have a really effective, amazing team for pennies, and that you don't have to hire somebody for 20 hours a week and then buy a desk and all this wonderful stuff that really weighed you down in terms of growth previously, right? So we're going to be doing that tomorrow in my group, Win the Hour, Win the Day. So really doing more live webinars and opportunities like that, as well as getting out there in podcasts. But, like you guys all said, it's really easy to hide behind your desk and say, oh, I'll get this all planned and do it at the end of the month. So now just doing it, being out there more, just being out there more.
How was your book as a visibility piece? Did it help you get more visibility?
Yeah. My book, it's kind of different because I actually have a marketing agency. That's what the book was written on, right? So I have that, but the book really does give you a reason to say, this is why you should talk to me now, right? So it just happened that my book was about time management and my experience there. But whatever your book is about, it definitely says, here, I have something new. It's an elaborate business card. Let's talk now, versus you know, when you say, well, I've been running a marketing agency for 10 years and my clients think I'm good, you should talk to me about it. Right. So you know, there's that, you want to have a hook, you want to have
Definitely
something
a
time.
tool.
Yeah. It's definitely a pull. Yeah.
It's not the visibility on its own from it, but more of using it as a tool to get more visibility.
No, if you no, it would just sit on a shelf. Like maybe your mother might read it. You know what I mean? Nothing happens magically. I mean, that's the whole thing about a
Yeah,
marketing
I think
agency.
that's so important to remember, because I know so many people think if I just get this, then I'll be good and I won't have to do
No,
anything else.
no. A book
I
on
keep
its
hoping that
own.
myself. That's something I'll come about for that.
Yeah. And that's an easy thing to think. Oh my gosh. Once I get the book done, like, whew, right. And then that's when the work really begins.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jess, how about you?
So in addition to podcasts and Harrow, something I'm trying to do more of, which I started this year, is doing webinars and workshops for like private masterminds or group coaching programs, which I actually did with Nicole this year. That like kind of kicked off, like, then I like started doing that more. So really doing that more, and then collaborating more with other people in my niche. So I've started connecting with people who also help health and wellness professionals, like, I do Pinterest for them, or I'm a business coach for health and wellness, like doing those kinds of collaborations. So like just getting in front of each other's audiences, since we're both really niche, and that's been really, really good. So I'm going to keep leaning into that next year.
Yeah. So a lot of it, like JV type collaboration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sure. Awesome. Jamie, how about you?
So I'm a little different, I think, than everyone. I love speaking and going. I could talk to anybody, anytime, anywhere. I like to meet new people, and I don't ever even use the word networking, because it's just, I just like to know people.
Right.
And I'm an in-person. I don't like to hide behind a computer. Like, I actually tend to shy away from it. I want to be on the phone. I want to be in person. I like to go to events. I get really excited about that. My entire business has been built based on visibility and based on word of mouth. So my shift actually is a little bit, I'm doing more marketing, which I am very begrudgingly doing. But if we're going to talk about visibility, you know, I look at it in a lot of different ways. Visibility sort of goes on top of visibility. So the more you get, the more you get. And so I speak regularly at live events. I probably travel 1 to 2 times a month to different events around the country. I do a lot of podcasts. I have my own podcast. I do a lot of either guest writing, but for very large publications. It's not like small. Like today, ConvertKit published an article I wrote about legal issues for podcasters. So I was really excited about that and thrilled to be a part of their platform, because they have, you know, their audience is definitely someone that I would work with. But I provide a lot of information, and I don't ever sell. And so I think that is so key and critical. You won't hear me talk about what we do. You won't hear me. I'm just giving information, because my whole platform is making things accessible. And it's a really hard topic. People are very scared of legal, and they're very reticent to even talk to a lawyer. So if I can make that accessible for one person who was like afraid to call a lawyer, who now will, that is sort of a win. And that gets me pretty excited. So I write, I do quotes, like in, you know, if somebody wants to talk to me, I'll do a quote like in Forbes or one of those places. I do a lot of like expert, where I appear as an expert in communities. So I allow people to ask me questions. I will do webinars, things like that. I do live events.
And I'm glad you're bringing up the in-person, because I think that, you know, there's so many of us that do have online businesses, but, you know, in-person is still a big thing.
It's everything.
Yeah, it's still a huge piece, and we do kind of miss out on that.
The difference between me having an email exchange and me having a 10-minute phone call in terms of meeting new clients is, I can't stress it enough.
Right.
It's a big part of what I talk about negotiation. Like, you have to make that personal connection. It's so critical, particularly, you know, the people on this call are talking about really emotional subjects, whether, you know, it's very emotional, even legal is really emotional for people. And so you need to form that one-on-one connection, even if you have a membership, even if you have large groups, even if you're building a community, because people need to feel like they can trust you and be a part of that. And a newsletter isn't going to do that. It's one small piece of it, I guess I'll say.
Absolutely.
So I don't have time to pitch anymore. I'm very lucky that people come to me, but I actually hired a PR person who does all my pitching for me. She does everything. So that to me was a great investment, because like you said, you know, there's certainly stuff that we pitch that we don't get. I like to aim high and reach high. And it's never personal. Also, like what Nicole says, you can't take that personally. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And if you lead with professionalism, and if you lead with kindness, and you lead with understanding, a year from now, when it is a fit, they're going to remember you. It's all about a long-term relationship.
And one thing that you said that is so important is, you know, just building that relationship, helping people, not going in it about like the sale, right? Like not
never.
Kind of going in it about the relationship. And I think sometimes we're so anxious that we're going to seem salesy. We do come off salesy because it's like in the back of our heads. So I think keeping that in mind as you're looking for any visibility opportunity, it really is about not how can you sell your stuff to anybody's audience or sell your stuff to anybody, but really how can you help somebody's audience? How can you help somebody? And I think that's going to bring the most genuine relationships, authentic relationships for yourselves.
And you know what, something I wanted to add that I resonated with Jamie was, I know in my marketing agency or now or when the day platform, if we got an email from anyone that had even like a question or inkling or a concern, my number one rule is you do not reply back. You get them on the phone, you talk to them, right? It's not, and if, you know, in fact, I often use lawyers example. I say, this is not, when you're going back and forth with emails, to me, it's like being in a court of law. You present, I present, but it's really not about mending, you know, it's not about connecting or resolving. It's about, here's my argument. And then I respond to you, well, that's not the way it is. And then you respond. So there's no coming, what's the end goal, right? So I value your importance there with talking to people, because I do think if you do that, everything just comes around much quicker and easier.
It does. I totally agree.
Yeah, I think it's also just easier for people to like connect with you when they hear you. I know myself, that's why I kind of moved away from like writing. I wasn't able to connect with people as much through writing as I was through, you know, I did weekly workshops this year.
Yeah.
That's why I podcast. Because writing is, for me, I'll do it, and I don't mind, but it starts to feel like a chore. But you stick me in front of a microphone, I'll talk all day. But I also think that there really is, you have to go into those conversations, those meetings very much with not of the mindset of like, what can we do for each other? It's more of like, who are you? And I want to genuinely know about you. Because you never know where that conversation is going to go. And you have to have a natural curiosity about people and in order for it to really be effective. So you can sort of smell out the people who really don't care pretty quickly. So I think that it's important to sort of shift how you approach just meeting new people. There's some people I will literally never work with, but I want to sit down and have a cup of coffee with them. They're just really cool people. And so I love that.
Awesome. So I'm going to just remind everybody, somebody just asked about your businesses. So Jamie is a lawyer. She's over at Hashtag Legal. Nicole is a financial therapist. Jess is over at Jess Creatives, and she is a web designer, and she does an amazing YouTube channel. And Chris is a productivity expert over at Win the Hour, Win the Day. So I'm going to ask one last question as we wrap up. And this is actually a question Nicole suggested, so you guys know it's going to be about money. But it's a good one. Jess, I'm going to start with you. How did you put your money to good use in your business in 2019, and what will you do different with your money in 2020?
For sure, my best investments this year were going to live events. I went to 3 different conferences or events this year, which is like a record for me to go to 3 in 1 year. So that was definitely like by far the best use of my time and money.
And that probably connects to the visibility piece, just like meeting those people that you've been maybe connecting with or seeing online. But person is just totally different.
Yeah, it was. So that was really awesome, and I want to like continue with that in 2020, as well as obviously just continuing to pay the people that are helping me, and potentially maybe some others, like bringing more people on my team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jamie, how about you?
By far and away, no question in my mind, it's the investment I make in my staff.
Mhm.
And I'm not just talking about salaries. I'm talking about, we do continuing education. I flew all of them to New York City to do, because we're virtual, and to do a team retreat, because some of them hadn't met each other. And I was like, it's worth it. So we flew them all in. Last year we went to Chicago. This year we did New York. We'll do something different next year. But that investment that we make in making them feel like a part of a team, how much I value them, because I value every single one of them. I couldn't do it without them, and just telling them that. But money wise, my best investment is that. And for the new year, we're offering health insurance. So hearing you guys say that, which was, I was really proud. When we sat down, I sat down with my ops director and I was like, I want to do health insurance. Like, I want to make this happen. And she's like, we're going to do it. So we're doing it. And they all opted in, which was kind of cool, because I was like, oh, maybe they don't need it or want it. And I got 2 phone calls from my employees who were like, thank you so much. This means the world to me. So that to me is everything, is just the investment of money into not only obviously paying them really good salaries, but also just into their development and their happiness, and making sure that they know that they're not just their work is valued, but who they are as people is really valuable to our team.
Yeah, that's great. Chris, you lost your power, but we have you back. Always something exciting.
I'm going to start paying electricity bills is what I'm going to do. I'm like, oh my God, I'm here in the dark. But what I did invest in, if you notice, is I have a power bar that gives me a half hour on my computer if something happens with electricity. So I've got a half hour to shut it down. So it came back. In the olden days, that would have just shut me out, whatever. So, now Google's going to.
You would have thought you got tired.
So I'm going to bed. I shut off the light. Okay. The thing for me always is investing in training. I mean, you know, if you're going to climb a mountain, you're going to have a Sherpa. So I want to get to where I want to get as fast as I can. And why not learn from other people's mistakes? So I don't know if it's going to be any different for 2020, but that's my thing. You know, who can I learn from, and how fast did they do it? And are they where I want to be? And so I really believe in investing in training, investing yourself, and just, you know, just go fully and really ambitious.
Yeah. All right, Nicole, how about you? You got your own question thrown at you.
Yeah, I wanted this question asked because I'm like Chris. I'm a big believer in investing in yourself, in growth, in learning. And so that's what I did in 2019. I had been thinking about hiring a coach or a business strategist for a while, but you know, those come with pretty hefty price tags. And so I had to overcome my own mindset block about how I was going to use my money. And I just bit the bullet and I went for it. And I worked with this incredible, absolutely outstanding business strategist. It was such a game changer for me. And it helped me get so clear on the direction I want to take my business, so clear on the services and offerings I want to provide to my clients, so clear on the message that I want to spread all over the place like glitter. And so I feel like the direction and the clarity that I got from working with her was worth like 10 times what I paid for it. And so that's how I want to use my money in 2022, is to really focus in on what's going to help me to provide more value to my clients, to offer better services that really are meeting my clients' needs, what is going to help me to get super clear on the trajectory of my business and the mission and vision behind that, so I can really stay in alignment with those goals. And part of how I, really choose how to spend my money comes down to values and being really clear on what I value in my professional life and my personal life, both, and letting my values make my decisions for how I spend my money. And just as a little tidbit, for anybody who feels like thinking about money or planning your money is scary or overwhelming or like a task that you dread, I have a fun little practice that I'll share with you that you might enjoy. So as a financial therapist, I encourage people to date their money and to look at their money like they look at their romantic relationships. And one piece of advice I give to all the couples that I work with is you have to have date nights. And so I encourage people to do the same thing with their money and schedule money dates, which is basically just like time set aside in your calendar, like an hour each week, let's say, that you sit down with your money and you get to know it. You know, you like see where it's been all week and what it's been up to. You make plans for what you want to do with it the next week, kind of check in, love up on it a little bit so your money starts to love you back. And it might sound a little hokey and frilly, but getting in that practice of really setting aside time with those money dates has helped me to make money a priority in my business and in my life and paying attention to it, because I used to ignore it and dread it and just sweep it under the rug. Like if I don't deal with it, then all the problems will just go away. But that really only made financial problems worse. And so learning from my own mistakes, I developed this practice, and it has been a real game changer for me in both my business and in my personal life in terms of managing my money and making decisions with it. So I'm just throwing that out there for anybody who feels a little nervous when it comes to financial matters, that it might be something fun for them to try.
Yeah, that's good. And that kind of goes along with what we're talking about in terms of productivity and staying on top of things and just really putting your time aside for those different things. But, you know, I think too, one of the things that I invested in this year that's always important to me is my team. Instead of, you know, my admin became my project manager, and I added a new admin onto the team. And of course, yes, it's always, for me, business strategy for sure. Investing in that as well, or else I have a hard time doing it for others. But I do think what's interesting from all of what you guys said, it's kind of about investing in other people, whether it's through going to events, or investing in seeing your team in person, or investing in strategy. Like we're all investing in other people, and investing in relationships. So I love that, you know, there's different ways to do that. But I think for those of you who are on, think about, you know, how can you invest in those relationships? How can you invest in connecting with other people? Because it does seem to be a common theme that came up tonight for all of us. So thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate it. For those of you who are on, for those of you who are watching the replay, just drop any questions you have below. I'll be checking in and answering anything you guys have or anything that comes up for you. But thanks so much for joining us for Bigger Business Live. I know that you guys will definitely be creating consistent income growth from some of the lessons you heard tonight. If you have any questions or anything, just let me know, and I will talk to you guys soon.